Welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. Today's review is about one of the most talked about Star Wars books in the expanded universe. Let's find out if Shadows of the Empire is worth it or if this should belong with the Forgotten Legends. Stick around and find out. Where should I start reading? What is canon versus legends? When does the story begin? The answers to these questions is right here on Star Wars Timeline. Shadows of the Empire is a Legends novel written by Steve Perry, with a cover illustration by the legendary artist Struzan. It was released in May of 1996 and was a part of the multimedia project. It included comic books, video games, trading cards, and even its own toy line. Now, I always like to bring the artist to the forefront and discuss it with fans because looking at this amazing cover here, it basically sold the book for me. And Drew Struzan is a blockbuster name in Star Wars illustrations. He did comic books, he did various books. I just wanted to bring him out. Now, when does the story take place in this book? Once again, this is a Legends novel, and the story takes place between 3 and 4 years after Battle of Yavin. This puts it right between episode 5 and 6, and is this in-between storyline. Guys, once again, my name is Benjamin, and I do Star Wars comic books and books reviews. Before you watch the full review, if you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to subscribe and support my channel. Now let's get to it. Quick spoiler alert. If you don't want to find out about the story details, please skip forward to the next chapter of this video, which I will timestamp. I have my notes in front of me, so I could quickly run to the storyline and give you guys my impression of it. So like I mentioned before, the story takes place immediately after episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, when Han is a carbonite freeze and he's being delivered by Boba Fett to the notorious Jabba the Hutt. Luke goes back to Tatooine. He tries to train in the Jedi way, and he goes to Kenobi's house in the Western Dune Sea, while Leia plans a rescue operation for Han. Vader is searching for Luke, and he wants to turn him to the dark side after revealing to him that he's his father. Meanwhile, there's another threat emerging. A new enemy comes to the forefront, and he teams up with Vader to bring down Luke. His motives are quite different, though. Prince Caesar, who is an ambitious and cunning leader of the galaxy-wide criminal organization called Black Sun, he seeks more power. He wants to be a part of the Empire, and he actually wants to replace Vader. And in this novel, he works to undermine Vader's reputation in the eyes of the Emperor, dethrone him, kill him, and takes his rightful place by the Emperor's side. Leia puts together a plan for her mission. She enlists Luke, she gets Lando, she gets Wedge Antilles with the entire Rogue Squadron, and there's a new character as well, the smuggler Dash Rendar, who is also part of the rescue effort. Our heroes execute their plan in a twofold strategy. First, Leia tries her diplomatic tactic. She goes straight to Prince Caesar in his palace and tries to appeal with him and try to extract the information they need to try to rescue Han. But she obviously underestimates Prince Caesar. He's part of this Fallen race. Not only he's a very powerful and influential crime lord, but he also has these pheromones which he's able to manipulate his victims with, and naturally he takes Leia hostage. In the meantime, Luke, Lando, and Dash Rendar, they use the backdoor tactics, and they infiltrate this seemingly impossibly approachable fortress from the underground. In the ensuing battle, all the friends escape, but so does the Prince Caesar. He flees to his battleship called Star Viper, but at this time, Vader discovers his ulterior motives. What Prince Caesar was planning all along is play two sides. No matter what, he wanted to gain more power. He told himself, okay, first I'm going to try to kill Luke and make Vader look inept and incapable in the eyes of the Emperor, thus be destroyed, and then Caesar could take his rightful place. Or if the Rebel Alliance wins and they end up destroying the Empire, he could remind them of, Black Sun's influence in helping them out and get the favor with them that way. Towards the end of this book and its climatic ending, we witness not only Vader's power, but also his strategic mind, and that he's able to outsmart his opponents as well. After he learns what Caesar was after, Vader sends his fleet and he destroys Prince Caesar. In the aftermath, at the end of the book, Luke, Leia, and Lando Calrissian are executing their plan in rescuing Han Solo, and it actually leads into the Return of the Jedi. So that's where the book ends. Now let's talk about my impression of it, what I enjoyed about it the most. First, I want to talk about Prince Caesar. When we're talking about the exotic species in the Star Wars lore, he's the first guy that comes to mind. Honestly, beyond the very epic and beautiful cover illustration, I didn't know what to expect out of this book. And here comes this grand, interesting, and fresh enemy who is not just a badass with a lightsaber or something, but he's cerebral, he's smart, he's very influential. I really enjoyed the fallen race, how their biology and how their hierarchy, how they function in and outside of the Black Sun organization. The organization itself was very interesting as well. Here's a major new faction which Prince Caesar is a head of, and they're a great influence on the galaxy, but they're not participating in the galactic war. They're operating from the shadows. Also, I really enjoyed this dynamic three-way relationship between the Emperor, Vader, and Prince Caesar. Prince Caesar wants his own power, and he will stop at nothing to accomplish it. Whereas Vader is being tested by the Emperor. Emperor makes Vader deliberately team up and work together with Prince Caesar and testing his intellect, testing his patience, and if Vader is weak, then he will be gone. So I really enjoyed this power struggle, this contest between these two grand villains, and you feel that, Prince Caesar, in terms of his resourcefulness, can go toe-to-toe with Vader. It was very, very tense and made me enjoy the novel more so. Next, a little bit more on the Black Sun criminal organization. What I really enjoyed was not just the fact that it first appears in this book. It's really fleshed out. You learn about its hierarchy, how it operates, and how, Prince Caesar, it's really is heart and soul of this organization. And they kind of remind me of the now current Nile from the Star Wars The High Republic. It's interesting to see a faction that is not related either to Empire or Rebellion. It's a third party with their own interesting background story. It was just fun to explore. And also, it almost serves as the link in the chain connecting all the Star Wars expanded universe lore, and also even going into the current canon, because Black Sun organization has been mentioned in, I believe, Clone Wars and Rebels show. It is now transferring over. That's how big of an influence it has made on the Legends expanded universe and now the canon as well. Next, to touch a little bit on the Dash Rendar. I'll admit to you guys, it's been years since I read this book, and while I do have fresh memories of how it felt reading it, some of the details I actually had to go back, read up on it, refamiliarize myself with it, and I have not played the Shadows of the Empire video games, and I don't remember reading the comic book, so my memory on Dash Rendar is a little bit hazy. What I do remember is that he was a pretty interesting and solid character, well fleshed out, not a wholly or entirely original. It's a classic version of an Imperial cadet who is disillusioned and he sees all the atrocities of war and the Empire, and he turns to smuggler. So that's as much as I have to say about him. Honestly, I want to go back and reread this book and refresh my memory and maybe, kind of like try to remember what my first impression of him was. Luke Skywalker's visit back to Tatooine and visiting Kenobi's adobe in the Dune Sea, it was very interesting. And it's really cool to see that this scene is recurring now in modern Star Wars comic books, almost like the Bruce Wayne's parents' death in the DC comics. It's constantly being reinterpreted in the various comic books, movies, and animation shows. So this is also the case here. And when I was reading the book, it made me feel like it completed the circle between Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Even though he still sees him later on in episode 6, it sort of closed this part of the chapter, and Luke is set on his path that yes, he has to become the Jedi and he has to carry on that torch. And the last thing I want to mention before I score this book is the action. While the story overall wasn't exactly what I was looking for, it didn't feel as epic or grand as other titles. I would actually recommend reading some trilogies in terms of that. It was a more compact, a little more intimate storyline revolved around saving Han and paving the way for episode 6. There's amazing action here, including ground combat as well as space battles. I felt that the infiltrating Prince Caesar's palace was something similar we'll later see in Rogue One, and that when they infiltrate the Cassell. And the space battle between Darth Vader's fleet and Prince Caesar's culminates in a very exciting and tense moment. And it was really interesting to see how this powerful figure, this new opponent, is reduced to nothing. And, Vader comes on top and demonstrates just one more time how dangerous he is, especially when you underestimate him. So while the story didn't have that epic scope that I was looking for, it really captures the spirit of the Star Wars, and it felt very cinematic. It had plenty of action, it had exotic aliens, it had a new underworld criminal organization, and most importantly, all the lead heroes, Luke, Leia, Lando Calrissian, felt fleshed out and really corresponded with their movie counterparts. So I really enjoyed that a lot. If I were to review this book, I would give it a 3.5 score. Again, it's not as epic as I imagined, but so what? I just looked at the cover, imagined one thing, and turned out to be a little something different. It felt like an in-between story of a trilogy books, really. And it makes sense because it corresponds with the story that takes place after episode 5, which is also an in-between movie between two other films. So in that sense, it felt just a tiny bit abrupt to me. Not a big issue. I would still highly recommend this book, especially for somebody who enjoys that feel of early and mid-90s science fiction novels. So that's it for my Shadows of the Empire review. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, guys. Please tell me in the comments below if you have read this book, or are you looking forward to, or when was the first time you heard about it. I really appreciate your time and supporting my channel. Please feel free to subscribe, hit that bell button, and I will see you next time. May the Force be with you.